Namaskar. Today is the 16th of August, Monday, and welcome to Daily Global Insights with Sri and Sree. This is episode number 225. Let us jump straight into global news. Afghanistan in complete and total control of Taliban. Taliban leadership to return from Qatar, where when safe and installed Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan. That's the name they want to call themselves as. Mr. Ashraf Ghani's government flees and India offers asylum to some 200 members of parliament. The United Kingdom calls for total boycott of the regime in a united manner and calls for a United Nations meeting. US troops land and confusion prevails on whether they are there on non combat or a combat role. And fire bellows from US embassy with documents being burned. There is a universal criticism of the Biden administration in the way the crisis has been dealt with and of draining or letting $2.2 trillion go down the drain. Netherlands, France, and Germany suspend deportation of Afghans. Sridharji, a lot happening in Afghanistan, and it's very, very regrettable the way the world has just stood by and watched Taliban run over the Afghan forces. It is really, really surprising, sir. I'll yield the floor to you. Take it away and give us an update of where you see this thing going, what is happening at this point, where is President Ghani going to be residing, and so on, sir.
No, it's great. I think that the good morning to everybody and welcome to DGI episode 225. And a bright week kicks off on Monday, but there's plenty of action going around over the weekend. With regard to the question of where's Afghanistan, Afghanistan is very clear. Afghanistan is now back in the hands of Taliban, and Mr. Mullah Bardar has addressed. The video was tweeted by Nikkei, and which he has basically stated, hey, the situation is that we have won. The battle has been very fast and very quick, and we thank Allah, and we will return very soon once the situation comes back to normalcy. We will serve the people and the needs of the people adequately. So therefore, now where is it headed? It's headed towards the Taliban way. They now effectively control all provinces. They moved into the capital fairly easily. There was no battles. They wanted to avoid, according to their own sources and their own statements, they wanted to avoid bloodshed. They wanted to avoid battles. They wanted this to be seamless. And to that extent, these 200,000 plus or 250,000 plus so-called Afghan forces have surrendered without a fight. United States, there's a tremendous surprise, no doubt about it, in the present administration. But having said that, it is very clear that the way this has gone down, is very, very tragic, and puts United States in extremely bad light. And every nation in the world has critiqued United States the way they have conducted this. It's intelligence failure. It is the failure to act. It is the failure to provide support. And it is, lack of any kind of insight as to what is going on. And just on the eve of this, you have the President of the United States making no statement. About a week ago, 3-4 days ago, not even a week, about 3-4 days ago, we can play out that video in one of the days that he issued a statement. He's got intelligence, he's got this, he's got that. There's no problems, everything is orchestrated. Then what he does, he disappears. He's now on Camp David in a holiday. So that's President Biden with regard to the Taliban situation. The press secretary today, this morning, is out of office, unavailable. So there's no briefing. The vice president is camera shy, so therefore she's not coming in front of the camera. So there is complete and total vacuum, and you have John Kirby from Department of Defense, making statements on the situation from the U.S. side. So this is the second. So then there is a collateral consequence. A collateral consequence is what are we going to do to all this embassy staff and various people, who have to be flown out of that country. So fortunately, the airbase is still under the control of the U.S. forces. Apparently they received some fire, but they are in control of the airbase. and they are progressively trying to evacuate the people from both the civilians who supported and who were part, translation team, on ground team, etc., who were promised and will not be left behind. They're being prioritized and sent. And then you have the evacuation of the embassy staff that will happen. But the sad figure that the televisions were broadcasting is this smoke coming out of the U.S. embassy, where is obviously people burning various documents, whatever they were doing. They were asked to kind of put out to fire. So this is on the the U.S. side. Before we get to Mr. Ashraf Ghani, we don't know where he is, but there are a lot of rumors. This morning, there's a rumor saying that he was in Oman with his national security advisor, and he was expected to be flying into United States. Why would he fly into United States, and who he would meet, etc., remains a big question mark. Clearly, he is not the man chosen by Taliban, and they didn't want to have him at all. They preferred Mr. Karzai rather than to Mr. Ashraf Ghani. So what exactly we will know more tomorrow to report, or more later today, United States time. While this goes on, the one leader who has stood up and shouting from the top of his voice is Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of UK. He has been not mincing words. He has taken the United States to task. He has taken the world, and he has basically indicated the world must unite. The world must come together and unite to basically oppose this regime that is stamping itself, when the agreement was to have an interim shared government. This has also been some same idea that has been pushed by India as well, as part of this various members who constituted this, including Russia. I think China was part of it, and then United States, which was facilitated by Qatar. And there's no statements coming from Qatar, except all these guys are holed up in Qatar. So you have the transitional government may not happen, and because Taliban is saying there's no transitional government, we are in charge. And as Sriji pointed out, it'll be an Islamic emirate. So people are absolutely petrified what the consequences are. Coming back to United States, just to wrap up, and then I'll hand it back to you, which is namely, many of these guys are going to be, this is breaking news this morning, many of the guys are going to be in military installations in Wisconsin or Texas. So, but there is no provision to accommodate. And them in these military installations. The House has to approve as per the laws. So now what they will do, they may have to go to the House, and whether the House will approve it, given that there is a bipartisan criticism of Biden administration, and there's nobody to talk to. There's only one person they can talk to, which is Mr. Blinken, or the Defense Secretary, Mr. Austin. So therefore, barring this, there's nobody to speak. So it's a very, very, very unforeseen and a circumstance that we have not seen in the United States.
And viewers, for those of you who are wondering, how is it that the Taliban has been able to overrun everything so quickly and so effectively? Here are some things, just playing back what happened in the last few weeks. See, the last contingent of 2,500 American troops that left Bagram Air Force, that triggered a avalanche of people leaving Afghanistan. For example, there were close to 8,000 EU troops and 18,000 private contractors. These private contractors were the ones who were maintaining all the Air Force, all the installation, most of the logistics was all being done by these contractors. When the main 2,500 contingent of the United States Armed Forces left, everybody left. So when the time came for the Afghan forces to respond back to Taliban, we have to keep in mind that Taliban does not have an air force. Therefore, the Afghan armed forces could have used their air power to drive back the Taliban from where they came. They came from the woodworks of Pakistan. So they could have done that, except they could not, because the training that was imparted to them was to train how to fly the plane, but they did not have ground staff to help prepare the planes. So this is just one of the many, many things that went wrong. An incredible decision by the President Joseph Biden, which again begs the question: this man has gone senile. You can see how he has been talking nonsense on Afghanistan. He overrode the advice of Pentagon and many defense chiefs, army generals, who said that now is not the good time to go. But this one domino effect has now caused all this. Now it is worse. I'm told 5,000 US troops, we don't know if they are in combat or non-combat duty, have been sent down again to Kabul airport. They are only in the Kabul airport. The US embassy is now operating out of Kabul airport, and all they are doing is securing the premises of the airport, nothing else. So where is this going to end? No one knows, but you can tell that this has been a spectacular combustion of what happens when the man at the top does not have full control of his faculties. This is just my call. Sridharji, your thoughts?
No, I think, look, this is a monumental failure of coming on top of a range of issues. But this sends a very, very clear message, which is namely that this administration is totally and utterly incompetent when it comes to even foreign policy. Okay, we have a major threat looming around various parts of the world, starting from South China Sea to Pacific. But the message that that Biden administration is sent, it is totally incompetent. We may begin to see that various strategic countries coming together. Already we have seen France. Clearly, UK is up in the league. They have been very forthright and forthcoming in fact, today's session, United Nations session, which will happen at 10 a.m. New York time, will be presided over by Mr. Dr. Jaishankar, India being the chair, and a whole range of issues. Mr. Gutierrez will also give an update from United Nations perspective. So there's going to be some sparks flying as the United Nations, conducts its United Nations Security Council conducts its sessions at 10 a.m. What exactly the outcomes? What exactly the pronouncements they're going to make? We will get to know, during the course of the day. But let's also add to one more point: the meticulous way by which Taliban choked off all the points to Kabul and controlled all the customs and other kinds of entry points, and also cutting off the revenue and the borders that they have with Iran and Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, reflects that they had done a much more calculated and meticulous planning in executing that strategy relative to what United States contemplated. From where all this came, etc., it begs a larger kind of a question. But even setting that aside, it seems like they had organized themselves much more capably, and they did it without firing big arms and creating chaos in Afghanistan. The chaos is only stemming from the fear of Taliban takeover and the consequences that stem from their policies and principles that they follow. And again, there is no transition government.
And I've been hearing from various YouTube broadcasts and other social media platforms that in every group of Taliban that was out there trying to conquer back portions of Afghanistan, in every group, there were Pakistani armed forces as well as perhaps ISI embedded in them. Now, if you look at the Pakistani YouTube TV channels, they are crowing as if it is their victory. They don't understand that they are feeding a snake, and they're thinking that the snake is only going to bite their neighbors. Well, we'll wait and see how this plays out. I don't think it's going to be that happy an ending. So let's wait and see. In the meantime, President Biden is sending an envoy to Ethiopia as war escalates between government forces. War also looms between Hezbollah and Israel. Israel and the United States are formulating a joint response to Polish anti-restitution legislation. So these are all very interesting developments. Why don't you walk us through one by one, sir?
We have already covered the Ethiopian and Tigray situation. This is the fight between the government and the non-government forces. Many of them are associated with some form of ISIS jihadi. So, United States has sent an envoy to assess the situation because this could be another. This is a very strategic point in the on the east coast of Africa. So they have sent an envoy to assess the situation. Also, I think that there is now news coming from the Hezbollah in the Lebanon side, and then the Gaza. You have the Palestinians reporting that there is a potential problem between Hamas and Israel, and they could be, on the threshold of actions there. So we have problems in those regions as well. And then the situation with the restitution is that Poland has effectively stated that all the properties, etc., which was what you call confiscated as a result of what happened during the Holocaust, they will be retained. They will not be paid back to the appropriate families, so which is causing a bit of a hiccup because that is not the norm. That's not what was agreed. But anyway, so I think they're passing a law and they're defending it. So Israel and United States, because there's many of the families either are here or there, coming up with a united approach to see how this can be resolved. Whether they'll resolve it, I mean, Poland is very sympathetic, so I would assume that they would come to some form of a resolution. It's not going to be all take, but it's just going to be some kind of give and take.
So this is an authorized land grab, the way I see it.
Well, I think we don't want to comment any further, other than we wait and see what happens.
Yes, indeed. Let's do that.
The circumstances, yeah.
And in COVID-related news, Taiwan COVID rules bar foreign workers from entering or leaving. COVID and torrential rains bash Japan, and several areas have been impacted. So now that Olympics is over, Japan is lurching into another crisis, COVID.
COVID is, COVID is ratcheting up, in big time. That was happening then. They so contained it by basically encircling that zone and enforcing, quarantine, very strict quarantine procedures. The rains are lashing, even both in Japan and China. The rains are they have the impact of the rains. It's the rainy season. The rains are not very, they're very, very torrential. So you have that problem. Asia itself is facing problem, and that's slowly trying to come out. Taiwan, very similar to Philippines, Vietnam, has imposed very stringent rules that people cannot come and people cannot leave, including foreign workers, because they believe that could be one of the reasons why from almost a 0% COVID to this alarming and rising cases of COVID in Taiwan.
And French vaccination centers have been vandalized. Germany lists Israel, Turkey, and the United States as high-risk COVID spots. Russia reports a record number of COVID-19 deaths. So now this Delta virus is extremely contagious, and it is really spreading fast in many countries, including the United States.
It is. I mean, United States, we have stated, which is the reason why it has been now classified as a high-risk country. I haven't looked at the numbers, but we are getting close to 6 million active cases. We were around, if you recall, we started around reporting quite regularly at 4.9 million. Now we have come to close to 6 million. Again, the usual states make up the list. So it's a worrying sign. There is a consistent push to vaccinate. Now, what is creating confusion is the efficacy percentages. One set of media reports efficacy is 55%. Another set of media reports is 51%. Then, if this is efficacy of Pfizer-BioNTech, and this is the efficacy of most notably Pfizer-BioNTech, we have not seen any reports as yet on the Moderna, and then saying that you are all going to require inevitable case of booster doses. So people are beginning to ask. So first you said if we are vaccinated, we are safe and take 2 vaccinations. Now you're saying even if we are vaccinated, the efficacy rate comes down. Now you're saying that we all have to take another vaccine called booster dose. Okay, why do you believe that we have to subject our body to these kinds of vaccines when you have not moved this from emergency approval to a formal mandate of approved vaccines. They're trying to expedite that. And then you are saying that we have to have one more vaccine, and there's no end to this, because get your research, get your data ready, and make sure that whenever we take these vaccines, we can say, okay, at least for the year we have taken. Something along those lines is what the anticipation is. So many of us who have taken the vaccines recognize having a vaccine is far better than none. But many of the younger generation people are resisting by basically saying that you're not sure, but you are asking us to do these things, and hence you find that we are stuck somewhere between 55 to 60% in terms of the vaccination adoption rates.
And next, let's take a look at United States news. Commander in absentia and resumes vacation while crises rage at home and abroad. Trump mocks Biden and Democrats. Do you miss me already? He asks. Sir, Trump is not missing a single opportunity to poke at the Biden administration.
It's incompetence at its best. Combine it with complete and total absence. Combine it with a statement which is completely and totally contradictory, which was made to the press before he took on vacation. So there are, I don't know, there is unsubstantiated assertions that he went against the Pentagon advice, namely not to pull out, but to have more troops on ground in preparation. So he went on the opposite. There's also been this inconsistent, whether it's combat or non-combat. I think what they're mistaking is combat meaning self-defense combat. If anybody is going to be coming in the way of evacuation and intrudes in that, then there is no question about it that these people are authorized to act. I think that's what they're trying to say. So it's not a full combat, but it could be defensive in the process of getting the job done. But as you said, Trump has made his point very clear, and to that extent, the entire administration, right at the top, president, vice president, this morning's reporting of the press secretary out of office, all doesn't augur very well for this administration. But you need to recognize that tech platforms are with the Biden administration. The mainstream media is with Biden administration. You flip the coin, if assume that this was President Trump, there would be a chorus to say, get rid of this guy, impeach him, institute 20,000 different commissions and inquiries to find out what happened. But this is Biden administration is the darling of the mainstream media, is the darling of the left-wing media. So therefore, you don't see the same amount of noise in the system, notwithstanding this calamity that the world is confronted with.
Viewers don't have to take our word for it. Just think for yourself what is happening between the communications being put out by the President of the United States and the Vice President. Normally, these two are in complete sync. They will speak with one voice. Do you see that happening? Do you see Kamala Harris, who was supposed to be responsible for border surge, prevention, control, whatever, has she come out with any statement? No, the DHS is doing that. Then why is she the responsible person for it? Is she being put up there as a scapegoat? Has she realized that, and that's why she's playing a low-key role? We have so many questions, but no one is there to give the answers. And I think it is pathetic that even the media spokesperson, Jen Psaki, is not available to answer questions when the world is going through such a critical phase. Now, we have to wait and see who's going to say what, and then somebody will come back and walk it backward because the invisible hand is going to come and say something different. This is pathetic. This is in my lifetime, I haven't seen an administration so rudderless, so clueless as what I'm seeing play out now. This is just my opinion. You don't have to take my word or Sridharji's word for it, but please do read both sides of the story before you make up your own conclusions. And I'm saying this specifically to all those Indian Americans who watch these webcasts and who have all gone and voted en masse to Democrats. And please remember that whatever was happening in India, where a frog was being slow cooked, it is going to start in the United States also. This is just my opinion, my reading, but the playbook is the same, whether it is India or United Kingdom or United States. You be the judge. What you want to do, you can chart your own destiny. Two soldiers plead guilty to smuggling illegal immigrants while wearing their army uniform to fool the border patrol agents. So now you have all these kinds of corruption too. The Department of Homeland Security sets a new record for catch and release at the border, while DHS boss is admitting that the surges are unprecedented and threatening. They are capturing and releasing where? Back in Mexico or not? We don't know. Sridharji will explain us.
Texas. Yeah, sorry. Finish. Please complete your thought.
Texas judge rules Biden administration rescinding Trump admin policy is illegal and orders DHS to restart remain in Mexico policy. This means the judge is saying basically they need to be in Mexico and not cross over. And the DHS also warns of newly active Al-Qaeda ahead of the 9/11 anniversary. Sir, again, now you have problems at the border. This is one of those things where the US government has shot itself in the foot. I think they had a laundry list of obligations to fulfill when they came to power, and one of them has spectacularly blown up on their faces. Again, this is my read. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think that you have summarized lots of the themes, but I have one thought that's just going through my mind as you speak, or as as we contemplate and look at this. Is this some kind of an intentional effort where, because you have not seen any member, you have not seen Nancy Pelosi speak, you have not seen Chuck Schumer speak, you have not seen, for example, Manchin speak, you have not seen these so-called famous actors. Pramila Jayapal is speaking about emails sent on infrastructure bill. She's not speaking about the major issue, United States conference. Mind you, she is sitting in this, what you call United States Human Rights Certification Forum or something. There is US, I don't remember the name, the expansion of the name, but anyway, so she is sitting in that committee. Then you have Ilhan Omar sitting in that committee. You have Rashida Tlaib sitting in that committee. None of them, no statement from Bernie Sanders, right? None of them, but their whole focus is on something different. Coming to this Department of Homeland Security, there are three major issues. One, we are seeing the rising cases. In fact, in July, we had close to 199,000 plus people apprehended. And we commented last week in the voice recorded daily Global Insight session that we are likely to touch 2.2 million illegal immigrants by next year. So we have this surge coming through. We also reported that many of them were not COVID tested. And they also lifted this, what you call Trump's remain in Mexico policy. In other words, those who are seeking asylum, until such time their name and application comes up, they have to remain in Mexico, and they will then be allowed to kind of cross the border. So these fellows rescinded that and said, no, you come here, we'll take you. We'll put you in army installations. We'll ask army to feed you, take care of you. Right? That's where they were sending. Then they ran out. Then they were all sent into different locations without any kind of date commitment as to when they would come up for the hearings. So you have this particular issue, and then now to basically to put as what you call spanner, the Texas court has ruled that this is illegal. You cannot rescind what has already been passed. Now, we are seeing this in a number of things. We're seeing this in the moratorium, on the rental moratorium. They keep on trying. They allow the date of the cutoff date to pass. Then they issue a new order. Then Psaki and Biden say, no, it's not illegal. We have passed this act after the expiry of the date. The judges say, no, sorry. This has not got nothing to do with date. This is your principal application of the overrule of the law is what we are saying. So what you're witnessing is a whole swag of actions that is resulting in problematic. On top of all this, Mr. Mayorkas is now saying that there is a very active noise in the Al-Qaeda system. It's possible that we could have some issues on the anniversary of 9/11. Now look at Afghanistan where it is today. look at all the mass set of actions that is taking place. So they will not be a surprise if they have evidence growing, and we just offer prayers that nothing untoward happens in a month's time.
And 8 Democratic senators have written to Nancy Pelosi not to hold the infrastructure bill to ransom and pass it without waiting for the mega $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill. IRS sends out 15 billion in child tax credit payments to families. Labor Department allots 240 million to fight terrifying levels of unemployment insurance fraud. Sir, this is mind blowing, and I can still tell you the right people are not finding any succor from the government. They are not getting the funding that is required to keep their small businesses afloat while they are still waiting for normalcy to return. I don't know where this money is headed.
Look, I think that we are now 30 minutes into the show, so I'm keeping a close. Each of these topics are topics which warrant detailed kind of a discussion. Basically, $15 billion have left. So everybody has called the child tax credits. Then the Democratic senator saying, don't hold. This is Democratic senator saying, don't hold the infrastructure bill to ransom. Pass it so we can send the benefits to get jobs. And I mean, to be candid, that $560 billion, the bipartisan, has substantive merit to it, notwithstanding the fact that there is leakages. There will be leakages. But there's a substantive benefit to that program in terms of getting some of the things going, like railway systems, the roads, the broadband, and etc., etc. So I think that there's substantive benefit. They're saying They're saying they want this $3.5 trillion mega bill to be passed, reconciliation package to be passed before they hold. So that's not going to happen because there's substantive debate that needs to happen. So therefore, that is the reason why the Democrats themselves are saying, if you don't do it, you can kiss goodbye to the elections. I think that the House and Senate elections are going to swing unless there is another instance of, some kind of issues. I think it's going to swing based on everything that is going on. Now, the fraud, as you pointed out, which is namely to say that they have allocated $240 million because there's fraud, because there's billions and billions and billions of dollars. Government, doesn't matter whether it's United States or whether it is anywhere else, which is I'm talking about democratic governments running business, is not very good, and it has never worked unless you happen to be China or you happen to be Russia. It doesn't mean that there is no corruption in those two countries, but they accept it and they have their own mechanism to dispense. But in a democratic countries like India or United States or UK or any of the European nations, when the governments take charge and run billions and billions and billions of dollars, there's no way. There's going to be a huge amount of fraud.
And viewers, please stay on for some breaking news from Tamil Nadu. We have JVC Sriram standing by. He will be giving us a stunning update on what has been happening in temples. This DMK government is acting like it has lost its head. Sriramji, I will bring you online in just a minute while we finish up US news. And then we will start with you when we start the Indian news. Thanks for joining, sir. Sridharji, as COVID variant cases rise, Biden administration is spending billions of dollars to hospitals in rural areas to fight COVID-19. Dr. Fauci, why is he still there? Tells vaccinated Americans they will inevitably require booster doses. Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna are likely to make billions in booster doses. Sir, this booster concept, do the pharma companies completely understand the efficacy of their vaccine? Just a fundamental question, sir.
Do they understand the efficacy of the vaccine? They're to be candid, their defensive posture is going to be, you have not shared all the research data. We have been asking you the data from the Wuhan lab. Well, NIH, apparently you have also funded this research. What is the data that you have? Can you share the data with us? So it's like it's going to bite back. You asked us to produce a vaccine based on certain set of data that we gleaned based on the initial infections from February and March. We have basically built a vaccine program that, and then we recognize that the vaccine program needs to be evolved. So therefore, that as we get more data, we are in a better position. That's what going to be the response. And because they have invested money, and typically that's the process here. Typically, as when you invest a lot of money, then you are there is very strong contract that binds the government with these pharma companies to give them the first right, and also to give them, the price that they dictate. And that is why, if you are an investor, then you are making zillions of money if you invest in this stocks, because this is going to be a multi mega billion dollars business, because we haven't seen the end of it. We are beginning to see what you call, we are probably at the midpoint as this takes off. So to answer your question, they will have a defensive response if we say, hey, do you know what you guys are doing? They say, yeah, we know what we are doing based on what we have been given. But have we been given everything? Well, that's Dr. Fauci. Back to your point, which is Dr. Fauci. Why is he still here? There is hope that someday he will speak out and say, I have all the data.
Thank you very much, sir. And let us jump into India news. And I'd like to bring Sri JVC Sriram online now. Sriram ji, namaskar. Welcome to PGurus Daily Global Insights. You are coming here for the first time, sir. Please update to us what is happening in Tamil Nadu. I'm hearing some very, very disturbing news. Has this DMK government lost its mind? Can you please set us straight on what exactly is going on as far as the temples are concerned? Looks like the priests are being asked to leave immediately. What is going on, sir?
See, this is a continuation of what they started out in 1967, which they failed. In 2006, they started again. They failed. And now, 2021, they're attempting the same thing. So the idea was here is, they want to appoint a non-Brahmin or other caste priest in the temples. And they trained these people in 2006 also. But then, there are several temples in Tamil Nadu where you have other caste priests who perform the various pujas and the rituals, which is a practice. But Supreme Court, after going through exhaustively, had given its verdict that in the temples which are going under the Agama Shastra, only by the Shastras they will have to go by. Now, what happened was, a couple of weeks back, the DMK government said, the archanas will be conducted, the prayers will be conducted in Tamil, which is being conducted for a long time. Or, the devotee has the right to request whether he wants to do the prayers in Sanskrit or in Tamil, which is facilities available. Now they said we will also appoint other caste priests in other temples, which was also okay, because most of the village temples and the temples which do not follow Agama Shastra do appoint these other caste priests. But in a stunning development in the last 2 days, even after the High Court gave a verdict that you will have to go by the Agama Shastras and you cannot deviate from it, the news which we are hearing from various temples down south in places like Sattur, in Trichurapalli, in famous temples called Naganatha Swami Temple, the priests have been asked to leave. And they've been asked to leave immediately, not given any kind of notice. And when a priest's daughter in Sattur goes and pleads with the executive officer, and she goes with a camera and she's trying to videograph, because there is already a Sun News TV guy crew who is taking the video, she's threatened. She's asking for, please tell us what happens to my father, who has been serving in this temple for decades together, and he has not got any benefits. They say this is a CM's order. Are you leaving this place right now, or are we arresting you immediately? Now, the matter has taken a big turn. It has become sensational all over the Tamil Nadu state, and it is also going into other states now, the news is. And the court has also intervened, because some urgent petitions have been filed in the court. And on August 18th, the court is going to hear these cases. But this is a major, major thing conducted by the DMK government, which is going against the Supreme Court ruling, which clearly said you will have to follow the Agama Shastra in appointing the priest in the temples.
Thank you very much, Sriramji, and we will again bring you back on our web Daily Global Insights, sir, as this information unfolds. I guess it's a day after tomorrow that the court is going to give a ruling. So hopefully we can bring you back here. Thank you so much for joining us at such short notice to give us an appraisal on what is happening in Tamil Nadu. Clearly, we have many heads of state who seem to have lost their mind. That's all I can say. And let's move on India news. Prime Minister Modi lays out a 10-point framework for building a strong and economically self-reliant India in his August 15th address. Sridharji, one of the criticisms of the Modi administration is he makes a lot of announcements. The follow-up is missing, and people point to the smart city initiative and so many other things that were announced with much fanfare, but nothing really happened on the ground. Now, is this new thing, the number is mind-boggling, 150 lakh crores or something like that, a very, very big number to improve India's infrastructure in 20 years. Your thoughts on what he said in his address and how much of that is realistically possible?
Look, I think that to first and foremost, vision and plans are vision and plans. As a leader of a nation, you lay out a vision for the country. So therefore, for example, I will take only 30 seconds. The 30 seconds is, there is no vision. There was no vision for Biden administration. You can falter in execution, but there was no vision. What was the vision of the exit Afghanistan policy? No vision. So come back to Modi ji. So Modi ji is saying, here's my vision. My vision here is I'm going to put 1.3 trillion US dollars, 1.3 trillion US dollars into the infrastructure so that this country moves to the next phase. Now, who is the person who is running the infrastructure? Mr. Nitin Gadkari. Now, you take a look at Mr. Nitin Gadkari's record on infrastructure, then one has to say whether the infrastructure has been built, defense, commercial, as well as consumer, which is people. There's a lot of progress in India. So I don't think you can find fault on that. Now, let me pick the point that you said, smart cities. Yes, I've been a little bit aware of the smart city programs. And one of the challenges, they felt that the smart cities is one way by which you can integrate and build neighborhoods and bring various facets, including, clean water, clean energy, clean environment into the thing. But that was the aspiration. A plan was built. Pilot cities were chosen. Many of them could not take off for a range of reasons. So have you failed? Yes, you have failed. But doesn't mean a leader of the nation, just because one initiative is failed, he keeps quiet. You need to look at what India has achieved, for example, on the health, vaccination side. We need to look at what India has achieved on the export sector. That's one of the things that's mentioned. You need to look at what they want to do with the agro industry, notwithstanding the fact that there is tremendous amount of chaos, uninstigated chaos created not to bring the reforms. But agro sector has been neglected, be it on the making them much more efficient and much less reliant on the ecosystem of feast and famine on terms of rain. So he's saying we need to improve our irrigational systems and ecosystems and use a richer tapestry of data. So one of the areas mentioned is agriculture. The second is rice distribution, which is that we need to fortify the rice distribution because a lot of it is, this what they call Food Corporation of India godowns. How many of them have been, replenished, updated, etc. There's a vast amount of loss that happens. So he's saying at least in next 4 or 5 years, we want to fortify so that we are able to supply rice. Again, India demonstrated during this COVID, 800 million households were given food. So that's one of the other items that is listed in one of those 10 points. Better utilization of the reserves. India is at 620 billion. Better utilization of the capital or better receipt of capital. We are now around 90 billion. So there are things that are happening. I can only give at the macro level as to what the outcomes have been. At the micro level, there will always be issues such as what a country such as India will face as they transition from a chaotic democracy to some kind of coherent democracy. I mean, just now you talked about the temples by bringing an expert on that matter. I mean, look at this. This is going on for, 50 years, 60 years. They haven't solved the problem, right? There is a contest. So if I kind of look at the overarching vision that he painted was India to be strong, self-reliant, as well as both economically and socially, because there's a lot of social capital must go in to lift the per capita, because more than 55% of the people are way below the national average on the per capita side. So basically lift the per capita and introduce programs which secures the nation, but also brings those people up in the what you call the ladder of basically upliftment from the general economic welfare point of view. So that's how I read the things. Just even in corporations, we probably paint 6, 7, 7, 8 different, but we find that if we execute 3 and achieve the specific milestones, we have got our numbers. So in this case, out of the 10 points, if he does 4, to me, he has met the scorecard as long as the economic parameters indicate progress.
Well, I can sum up what you just observed, Sridharji, this thusly. Every time there is a state government that is not having BJP at the helm, the government believes that by just blindly opposing every proposal of the center, that they can continue to garner votes. And somehow this messaging, this communication of what the Modi government has achieved in the last 7 years is not perhaps still going down to the common man. Maybe the food part has helped this, but there is still something that is missing, because if the people say we want Modi's plans for us, then no state government can stop that from happening. But now what you're seeing is every non-BJP's controlled government is trying to find new ways to somehow block this. Very unfortunate. The nation needs to move in one direction, speak one voice, and they need to think that first they are the citizens of the country. I keep saying this thing, but somehow the ground information does not make me feel very good, which is why I keep saying this. Exports grew 50% to USD 35.43 billion, and imports by 63% to 46.4 billion, and the trade deficit widened by 10.97 billion in July. Free trade agreement, or I don't know if FTA means that, negotiations expedited, and there is a give and take inevitable, says Commerce Minister. What is FTA, sir?
Free trade agreement.
Free trade agreement. Okay, I was right. FX reserves increased to 621.46 billion. PM Modi launches much awaited vehicle scrappage policy, expects over 10,000 crores new investment in scrapping industry. This is a good one, sir. I'm going to let you answer this one, and then we will wrap up because we are really over time. Please go ahead, sir.
No, I think that basically there are 2 key takeaways. One takeaway is that the economy continues to evolve. That's reflected in the reserves. The export-import is an indication of what you call the mainstream economy coming back from the COVID situation. That's driven by a combination of 2 factors. One is the tremendous vaccination drive. Tremendous. There was 8 million people, 7.5 million people vaccinated. Apparently in July, 75 million people have been vaccinated. That's a big, remarkable number for India is concerned. As far as the vehicle scrappage industry is concerned, this is long overdue. One of the ways by which India has to deal with these environmental issues is to get rid of a lot of the vehicles and come up with a gradual replacement program. And so therefore the scrappage, vehicle scrappage business is an important business, and it has got significant kind of outcomes, economic outcomes that flow with it. And there is also investments that is contemplated to come out. So this would be my key. And again, alternate energy, they are doing very well. Especially I think that when you look at the renewable energy, they are very much on target. They are 25% on target to achieve the 450 gigawatt power by 2030. So they're already crossed the 100. So I think you're beginning to see what I call as tea leaves or green shoots, as we call in economic context within the Indian. But as I say, we are looking at, at least myself, my opinion is based on macro level parameters. As you rightly point out, there are still micro level issues. This is the governmental behavior between one government versus the other government. This is one of the reasons why India is not a $5 or $10 trillion economy already. It's because of this. They have no economic goal. It is only political goal. The political goal is how do I stay in power and harness and fool around. So I hope that the people of India rise up and actively take part and make sure that things work. And very similar to the way they've demonstrated through the pandemic, and very similar to the way the entire vaccine program has been driven. I should not exclude this security. India has beefed up its security around eastern, northern, and western borders like nobody's business. It is very well fortified. I think it can deal with issues on multiple fronts, whether it is air, satellite, defense, everything. I think it seems to be well organized. Anyway, with that we conclude.
Sir, one line, sir. One line. We just want to touch on market. Just one ticker thing, because we want to look at the U.S. consumer confidence. It has plunged to a 10-year low on inflation, unemployment, and financial woes. Your thoughts on that before we sign off?
It's an amazing number. This is in our consumer confidence level is at the lowest level since pre-pandemic, driven by three specific factors. One, lack of control and fears growing from the Delta variant. That's number one. Number two, this is not, again, mainstream media doesn't want to cover this, and we have repeatedly covered this in Daily Global Insights. This stupid energy policy of cutting off your toe even before you can think of any geopolitical crisis by cutting off the supply lines, you have gas prices spiraling. Third, a policy which says, telling OPEC, hey, you increase the supply while you cut the supply is not doing well. So this is because everybody drives in the United States and the prices are shooting up. I had people from California tell me, send me some pictures, which is to say that their prices are averaging between $4.8 to $5.3 a gallon. So you can also attribute. And inflation is here. Inflation is very high. It's now going past 5.4%. We are going to publish a paper in PGurus, right? We have inflation, we have low consumer confidence, yet the markets are roaring. The markets were up on Friday. They are down 100 points today, primarily because of this situation arising from increasing cases of Delta variant. So this is my kind of closing observations. We will do a paper. We have run out of time. We are already 52 minutes into the session, where we'll show why the markets are still continuing to climb and why the markets will climb for the near-term future.
Thank you very much, Sridharji. As always, viewers, please like and share our video as soon as we start. You know the quality. You can be assured that the quality is going to be good, because one watchful viewer had commented, how can we like before we know what we are going to see? Well, it's a very good point. The point here is that our viewability, we have various reasons. I can't tell you online for which we are being penalized. I don't think we are being fairly treated by many SM platforms, but that is okay. Data is data. Data does not lie. That is our belief. Sridharji, your continued enthusiasm and taking care of everything last week, very, very much appreciated, sir. Viewers, I had to take 1 week off to do something else, and I'm back again at full speed, full throttle. We'll be back again tomorrow, bright and early. See you all soon. Namaskar, and do subscribe to our channel.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and have a wonderful week. We just have kicked off the week with a 52-minute session. So we will try to keep it to 25 to 30 minutes or less than 30 minutes from tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.